Welcome to Tech Insight, where we show you how to make your workspace work. In this episode, we're going to look at how to access your workspace with Workspace App. Workspace App is how a user gets access to their workspace resources, which could be applications. Those applications could be SaaS apps, web apps, or virtual apps. Workspace App also gives users access to their desktops, whether it's a local desktop or a virtual desktop. And finally, Workspace App gives users access to their files and their data. Those files and data could be stored in numerous repositories, whether they're hosted on ShareFile, whether they're hosted on an on-prem network file server, or they're hosted in some other cloud storage provider like OneDrive, Google Drive, Box, and so on. The key thing is that all of the resources a user requires should be located and accessible from Workspace App. Now, Workspace App comes in three different flavors. You have Workspace App, which is an installed application that's for Windows, Mac, and Linux. And on the Windows platform, it can either be a downloadable executable, or it can be part of the Universal Windows platform available via the Microsoft Store. On the mobile side, you can get Workspace App, the mobile version, via the iOS and Android stores. And then finally, you have Workspace Web, which uses an HTML5 browser to give you access to your workspace environment. Now, all three of these different flavors of Workspace App provides the exact same user experience. So a user can move from device to device to device in different platforms, and they get the exact same user experience for their workspace. Let's dig a little deeper into Workspace App and see what it's comprised of. First, Workspace App works on pretty much any platform: Windows, Mac, Linux, iOS, Android devices, and anything that has an HTML5 browser. Within Workspace App, there's multiple engines, and each one of these engines provides a unique functionality to the overall Workspace App. For example, there's an embedded browser within Workspace App that provides native access to SaaS apps and web applications. There's also the content collaboration engine that gives you access to different storage repositories: ShareFile, local network shares, OneDrive, Google Drive, and so on. While the networking engine optimizes network traffic, provides SSL VPN as well as micro VPN capabilities for certain applications. Now, we saw previously, Workspace App comes in three different flavors: desktop, mobile, and web. So you might be asking yourself, why would you use and when would you use these different flavors of Workspace App? If we're on a corporate desktop, it makes sense to physically deploy Workspace App to those devices. And the same thing goes with phones and tablets, to use the mobile version of Workspace App. Now, Workspace Web are for those instances when you might be on your home PC or a public kiosk, where you don't want to install Workspace App or you don't have the rights to install Workspace App. So in that instance, you're going to use Workspace Web, which is the HTML5 version of Workspace App. All of these different flavors of Workspace App all communicate with the Workspace Experience service running within Citrix Cloud. Workspace Experience then pulls in all these different feeds, all these different resources from other services running in Citrix Cloud. This could be your virtual apps and desktops, could be a secure browser, could even be your content collaboration access control, which is your SaaS applications. Whatever services the organization subscribes to are automatically pulled into the workspace and delivered into the user's Workspace App. So far, we're only talking about cloud feeds, feeds that are coming from the Citrix Cloud service. But we can also incorporate a virtual apps and desktop deployment that's running in the on-premises data center and that's also managed by IT. These are the traditional virtual apps and desktops implementations that many organizations run. So we can now, with site aggregation, tie this into the user's overall workspace experience. Each one of these feeds provides the user's workspace experience with a different and unique type of application. So right now we can support local apps, SaaS apps, virtual apps and desktops, browser apps, as well as storage apps. As the feeds continue to increase and expand, we'll be able to include additional resources in the user's overall workspace. So from the user's one workspace, they will be able to get to every single application that they need access to. Now that we have an understanding of how Workspace App functions, let's take a look at the admin experience of how you go about configuring Workspace App. The first thing you're going to want to do is set the workspace URL. And this is the URL that all the Workspace apps whether it's desktop, mobile, or web, are going to access to get to the user's workspace experience. You want to do this first because you don't want to have to go back and modify this after you've already deployed Workspace to the users. Next, you want to set the authentication for the users. How are they going to authenticate to their workspace? Is it going to be with Active Directory, the on-premises Active Directory environment that the organization already has, or is it going to be Azure Active Directory? Now, depending on which authentication method you select, is going to have different deployment requirements, potentially including the deployment of cloud connectors to your on-prem data center. What customizations in the overall interface do we want to provide and customize for the overall user experience? Do we want to set logos, set different colors for the environment? And do we want to give the users the ability to favorite applications and desktops to make it easier for them to find on the entry workspace window? Next, we want to make sure that any services as an organization we've subscribed to are being integrated into the user's workspace. And finally, do we want to incorporate site aggregation? And this is where you can incorporate a organization's IT managed on-prem virtual apps and desktops environment into the workspace. From an admin and user perspective, the configuration of a workspace as well as the access to a workspace couldn't be any easier.